awesome.
All right. So anything else, or we're going to move on to the most important question in this? Yeah? Okay. So the most important question. Do you like cheese? And if yes, which ones and why? And if no, why you're a horrible person? So yeah.
I am from Holland.
Yes.
I know everyone says Gouda. This, by the way, it's pronounced Gouda. I just want to say that because, everyone in America needs to understand that it's not Gouda, although it is good. But there's lots of... so the first misconception about Dutch cheese is like Gouda is a brand. It's not. Gouda is a place in Holland. And a lot of the cheeses that are made in Holland are named after the places that they're made, like Edam or Volendam or Gouda, or, it doesn't really matter. And then cheese is different. You can have a cheese from Gouda, or you can have cheese from Gouda and have 50 different ones, and depending on the aging process, what kind of herbs they add to it, and how spicy they make it. So I love cheese, and that's why I hate the cheese here in America, because it's very sad. It makes me very sad.
It's actually called government cheese. It's again, the government is messing things up.
I think I may have said this in a previous discussion, but I always found it funny, especially when I went to culinary school, where Europeans said American cheeses have no flavor, then Americans say European cheeses are too strong. But it's because like we're used to stuff that's been so pasteurized, homogenized, everything, like it doesn't taste like anything. So when you have European stuff for the first time, it's like, whoa, this is too much. But for you guys, that's normal. And like you get like craft singles, and you're just like, what the hell? It's like triple pasteurized, homogenized. Like it's designed so you can put it on a shelf and it can sit there for like a month and it's fine, but it's no good.
Well, the biggest takeaway is like I love making, one of my homemade specialties is my homemade tomato soup with grilled cheese. It's great. But if you do grilled cheese in America, after a second, the cheese gets this rubbery, plasticky, and it's really hard to swallow almost, because it's like there's like a string from here, to what you're still chewing here, and it kind of gets stuck, and it creeps me out. It's like I'm choking on fucking cheese. On Holland, it's smooth. You're just like, it's done.
I'd heard that how the pronunciation. I listened to this guy Loco. He has a channel where he casts like StarCraft stuff. Like StarCraft does that stuff fascinates me. Like people are making 19. There's a 19-year-old best StarCraft player in the world right now. He's been playing for I think 4 years already. And he's almost made $1 million just playing a video game. And the way they do these things, it's like current chess. Well, anyway, but Loco he's a Dutch player, and he casts him. He occasionally brings up the Howda thing. He's like, quit saying Gouda. So there's a thing with that. But even like with Mark, as you mentioned, he was making some halloumi. I just made some halloumi today with some chicken Alfredo. I was doing like it. There's this things. Now, if you have a community like this, some things, it's really kind of the amount of effort and time it takes to put in to make something yourself. If you're just doing it for yourself, the cost-benefit analysis doesn't really make sense. But then if you have a group like F.I.O.L.A, you people come together and you say like, okay, one of our households has enough time somehow, and we're going to invest our time making some cheese, but we'll make a large amount. Because to make a small wheel, the amount of effort you put in, you could probably make 20 wheels. With that effort, we're just bumping effort up a bit, and then that would make that worthwhile for that thing. And it keeps, so there's ways to do these things. As I'm saying, like, people can get the actual abilities. You can actually get the actual contents. You don't just have to go, like you're saying, go to the supermarket that's government run, or the government roads, with your government checks and your government money and everything, and just get everything that's been approved, the government cheese that's been approved in that sense. It's like, no, find ways to actually do things on your own and just be more of like the American reality, like be American, like it's be American. Like what's wrong with these people who are just like, it's like they sold me false goods. I got there and I see all these Americans are just like, bleh. I'm like, what is with you people? Do more. Like everybody else in the world wants to come here because there's all these things you can do. And we come here and y'all just sitting here just like some kid with all these video games and just like, I don't want to play a video game. Meanwhile, I'm at home like snakes and ladders. Like that's all I'm playing like over and over again. It's a weird situation.
We'll probably do a presentation next for food on Casa Lua. I don't know if you saw the photos I posted, Kayra. It's a place actually a block up and over from me. It features cheese. It's like a cheese and wine bar, and it's cool. They do these flights of cheeses with different condiments, and it's like lighter to heavier, and like the condiments change based on the season, and like there's charcuterie. It's really good wine list. Yeah, Andrea will probably join us because she went with me, and I have a bunch of materials. So it'll be pretty interesting. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me know.
I hope this happens. So I hope we start seeing things opening up where some of these regulations, the same way there's regulations to limit drugs getting to there with the FDA. FDA is also involved with food, and food is a drug. I consider it a drug that keeps you from dying. We're constantly dying. That's why my channel is called Dying Alive, and that's why this eventually we're a podcast called The Dying Alive. Because it's like instead of living dead, you're dying alive. If you don't do anything, you will die. Eating food is taking in content.
You, and I think you'll really like it, and that's really about that last thing what you said, like we're all dying, and that song is kind of like the opposite, like we're all alive until we're dead, and I think that it's a very interesting other side of looking at it, and I'll send it to you like after we're off the air, because I think you'll really enjoy it.
All right, we might leave also a link and wherever this one is. But yeah, like that kind of thing, I think when you break down the FDA and also have now people, there was a lot of things that I found out about the FDA during the start of the pestilence, where it's like, I didn't realize how many farmers actually send their food to like this schooling indoctrination complex, and how many people rely on their daily meals from them, like how many kids rely, it's like tens of millions of kids are relying on food from the schools. And then I went to a really good school, and some of the food was a bit meh, especially compared to the great stuff my mom was making and taught us to make. And I'm thinking most schools it was literally like one of the top 25 public schools in the nation. So everybody else was like, I can't imagine how bad average was, let alone below average. And that's still all these people can rely on. And then now I was seeing all these stories of people just having hundreds of thousands of potatoes, like they couldn't just take them to the local market because it had to go to the factory. It had to be passed by these people, then sent to these people. It's you can't package things and just send them to your neighbor. It's so horrible. And even Mark was talking about those things where he was saying some of these things we just can't do anything with it because we have to go to this place to do it. Like we have sometimes in situations, so we have to make sure things are right at the point because you don't want things to spoil, things to go bad. And it's such a crap situation because in first world countries, people misuse the resources that they have. In developing countries like here in Kenya, there's no resources. So it's a different kind of situation where it's almost more pathetic to see the first worlders because it's like you have the tools, you have the abilities, but you're misusing it. Here, people are just not aware. Like here, there's not good enough roads. So in Western Kenya, where there's a lot of rains, like food will rot in the actual ground because there's not enough people to pick it up. And then even if you plant it, if you harvested it and put it in the trucks, it couldn't get across the country in time because there's no system. So that's the kind of situation. But in America, it's like you're not allowed. People are like, if you take that out of the ground, we're gonna fine you. Like, what is wrong with these people?
Well, because I noticed this too when I went to culinary school as well too. Like we threw away so much food there, and people were asking like, why are we doing this? Why don't we give it to like the homeless people in Poughkeepsie right nearby? And it's like, well, there's laws against us doing that. It's like that's the thing. I keep emphasizing that they're like, oh, there's food being thrown away when people are hungry under capitalism. I'm like, that's not capitalism. That's the government mandating we throw it away. Oh.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to like rattle ourselves here. The spooks listen to this, but when you have those kind of groups and things like that, if you have a group like F.I.O.L.A, you just send the stuff to you. That's why the government wants to get into like all the things. They want everything to be all regulated. They want to know about you $600 account changes because it's not this whole idea. Oh, it's the billionaires not paying the fair share. No, they want everyone. They want to know what you're all doing because otherwise you could just have a situation where you just have a community and just set up your own barter trade. What are they going to do? I mean, they're going to try to come and get their filthy lucre for that, get their pound of flesh. But you can do these things. There's ways, there's workarounds from this system because you have the tools, you have the ability, you have the information. If you're listening to this, chances are there's a lot more things you can do with the actual internet, with the actual access to tools and communication that you have. Because this is the first time, and America is probably the first society and culture with all the connections and the things and the actual diverse areas and people and abilities where you can actually have freedom of speech. Like the idea of freedom of speech in the past was a good idea that came up in the United States of America, but the tools and the ability to actually exercise that freedom of speech did not exist. But now it does, and that's part of why you have this so-called whistleblower talking about the first whistleblower ever to say we need more of what I'm blowing on versus the people who blow before and say we need less. Huh?
I don't think I've ever seen something so cringeworthy. What a pathetic attempt of propaganda. It was Greta Thunberg, and that was bad as it was.
Yeah, this is worse. But I think more people were calling this out. I'm seeing people on the internet just calling her out, being like, "Guys, this is ridiculous. No one's buying this." I mean, it's hilarious.
She got a verified Twitter account after like 2 days, and they were like, "Okay, like Assange is in jail, Snowden is exiled, Seth Rich is in jail." It's like, you know.
It's government cheese. It's seriously like that government cheese, like saying Velveeta is cheese. I'm like, no, that's not cheese. Like that's processed. Like, don't bring me that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So now we'll move on to the last one. And the last question here of the main section of this is anything else you'd like to add about F.I.O.L.A, about what you do? Things like the earnings, cost benefit analysis, if people have that in mind. Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Presents. 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 Presents.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.